Hey guys, it is NCS Fan 001 here for Destiny Cookbook Recipes, episode number 12. Today's recipe is the Tincture of Queensfoil. I bumped into Guardians on their return from the Dreaming City and asked about a peculiar bottle in their possession. They called it a Tincture of Queensfoil. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Its effects don't seem like something I need to experience, but the Guardians did mention that it tastes a bit like the blackberry tea that the Queen of the Reef loves so much. So I made myself a pitcher of this to hold me over. This recipe is going to require 9 cups of water that have been divided into 2 sets, 1.5 cups of sugar, 8 ounces or so of blackberries, 3 Earl Grey tea bags, 2 white tea bags, and additional blackberries for garnish. It is an easy difficulty recipe that takes 12 hours of prep and 45 minutes of cooking time. You're going to let it rest for at least 8 hours. It will serve up to 8 people, and it is vegan. So admittedly, guys, I'm doing this recipe differently because the initial time I did this, I finished the recipe only to find out that the very first recording, which I'm re-recording now, didn't work properly. It's something with my camera, if you move it around too much and if it has any sort of impact whatsoever, it just decides to stop working. So I'm actually having to refilm the entire first step. I'm also in a different set of the kitchen because I want to see, one, how it looks, and 2, the cutting board I got for my birthday is, there's stuff I have to put on the wood to treat it because it's actually a really nice cutting board that I now have, so that's why I'm in a different spot. So our first step is to combine 1 cup of the water with the 1.5 cups of sugar. Now this is actually not 1.5 cups, it's only about 1 cup because it's all I had, and because, like I said, I'm just refilming the first part so you guys can see it. I don't really care. I'm not going to actually finish it a second time, so just so you know, it's not the full amount of sugar, and I don't want to waste any more than that when I don't have to. And also, I hope these blackberries don't smell horrible because they've been sitting in the fridge for multiple weeks and they almost, they don't look good, so I don't smell anything weird about them though, which is good. So once these are in, we are going to stir all this together, and then we are going to move it over to the stove. We're going to have to place it over medium to high heat, let the sugar dissolve, and then bring it up to a boil. From there, we reduce the heat and simmer for 15 minutes. So I will see you guys back here in just a moment. Alright guys, so now the stuff has been brought to a boil. I've already dropped it down to low heat, and we're going to let it simmer for 15 minutes. I'll be back in around 7 to 8 minutes so we can do the other part of the step. Alright guys, so while that part of our tea is going, I've actually lit up the second burner, as you can probably see here. I only ever use the burner on the bottom right, so thankfully all these other ones work properly. So now we're going to put our other 8 cups of water onto this and let it bring it to a boil. Time to boil some water, like that Fallout recipe. Let me stir that real quick. It's turned completely red. So like the berry color, well, red-blackish. So we need to let that bring up to temperature, let it boil. Now when that gets up to a boil, we have to add the Earl Grey and white tea bags. Of course, we only have Earl Grey because, like I said, couldn't find any white tea, at least at Food Lion. And then we have to let it steep for 6 to 8 minutes. We have to turn off the heat and then let it steep for 6 to 8 minutes. Alright guys, our water is actually still being brought up to the boiling temperature, but the timer just went off on the 15 minutes for the actual main tea portion. So now that we've done that, we're going to remove it from the heat and then pour it through a fine mesh strainer into a pitcher. I'm going to do that once I reposition the camera, but for now, let me go ahead and take this off of the heat. Alright guys, that water is pretty much boiling at this point. We got the bubbles going. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, actually first I'm going to turn off the heat. Move this to the back, away from the heat, or where the heat might still be coming from. And now we're going to put on our tea bags. I hope that doesn't catch on fire because they're sitting off the side like that. Alright, so it says 6 to 8 minutes, so I'm just going to do it for 7, split the difference. And our next step will be the pouring this other stuff into a strainer and into a pitcher. All right, guys, so now that we have this mixture, we have to pour it into a pitcher through a strainer so we get rid of all the little berries and stuff. I'm also pouring it into a funnel so that the majority of it goes in here. Okay, this is an odd setup. It's like a science experiment in here. Okay, now I can use both hands here. Move those around, drop that in. All right. Now all we have to do is wait another 5 minutes and 40 seconds until the steeping is done. Alright guys, that alarm signals the end of the tea being steeped. So we now have all of our tea in here, or tea related stuff. I'm going to drop these in the sink, let them cool off a little bit. Now we just got to put this into the pitcher without it doing anything horrible like it sometimes does. I don't care if I spill some on the counter, I gotta clean the counter anyway, so it's not that big a deal. I think I would suggest if you're not a huge tea person to probably make a half batch of this recipe, because this is a lot of liquid. So now we just have to stir this stuff together as best I can do. What can I use to stir in there? Oh, this'll work. This'll fit in here. Alright guys, so with that done, we need to cover this, and we need to refrigerate it for at least 8 hours before serving, in which we will serve it in a glass with ice and fresh blackberries. So I'll be back here tomorrow for the taste test. Alright guys, so after letting this cool overnight, we have a lot of liquid in here. I have let it cool, I have put it in a glass with ice and additional blackberries, or an additional blackberry. So unfortunately I'm actually going to have to re-record the first part of this video, so it's going to be like on a second take of this because my camera screwed up during the recording. That sometimes happens if it bumps into stuff. I don't really know why it is, it just happens. So let's give this a try. Exactly what I thought it was. It's sweet tea. It's good. It's actually very good. For someone who doesn't usually drink a lot of sweet tea, that is very good. Like, that tastes like pretty high quality sweet tea. So I am very happy with how this came out as someone who, again, doesn't usually drink it. I like the sort of weird red color because that's not usually what it looks like. The blackberries, I can taste a little bit of the blackberries in here. Yeah, that's honestly pretty good. Like, again, I don't drink a whole lot of it, partially because it's so terrible for you, because it's literally just like sugar, water, and tea. But honestly, it tastes pretty good. So I'm going to say that that is yet another success from the Destiny Cookbook. We've had, what, like one bad recipe so far, and that was probably more my fault anyway. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, favorite, share, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell if you have not already. And I will see you guys back here for the next video.